Good to see you again. This is session 5, Vulnerability in God's Image, what the New Testament teaches about being a man. And today I'd like us to talk a little bit about what it means to be vulnerable and how that tells the world something about God. Jesus was incredibly vulnerable. He left himself wide open, allowed himself to be killed, also that this relationship with God could be restored. Paul, who in an age in which there was persecution and he was in charge of the persecution, turned everything around and laid aside the arrogance, the bombast, the commitment to always being right, and said, "Here I am. I'm a servant of Jesus. Take your best shot, but I'm going to love you." And this, I think, is a critically important concept for Christian men to understand, because we live in a time where arrogance and bullying and dominance by physical force and I get my own way, I have to be right, you have to be wrong, all of this is often represented in the Christian world with the way that we create divisions between ourselves in the name of having to be right, having to be theologically more in tune than the other person. And yet the message of the New Testament is simply this: God loves you. I love you. I'm going to lay myself wide open and I'm going to be completely at your service, because the gospel is not about dominance, but the gospel is about service and about submission. One of my favorite verses in the New Testament talks about us mutually being submissive one to another. And I think it's very easy in men's ministry to just listen to the fact that, well, men should be in charge, women should submit to us, and that's the end of it. Whereas the scriptural teaching is very clear that we are to submit one to another, that in being vulnerable we show Christ's love to the world. I think it's no accident that Jesus chose the symbols of his body and his blood to remember him the most clearly by. Do this as often as you drink it, as often as you eat it, until I come, because you show the truth about God, Jesus said, in the way that you just give yourselves. So I think that as Christian men, especially American Christian men at the beginning of this 21st century, we've got a lot of ground to make up. We've got a lot of convincing the world that needs to be done about the validity, about the credibility of our witness. And I believe that inasmuch as we become more vulnerable, we take the barriers down, we unbuild those walls that stand between us, and we say, this is my honest self, this is who I am, love me, God loves me, and I love you. That we're teaching through demonstration one of the deeper truths about the love of God. There's a lot of confusion in the way that Christian men present themselves, have presented themselves, and I think this is our opportunity to get it right. Vulnerability is a characteristic of the image of God, and I think that's something that I want to grow more into, and I hope we can have a conversation about this in our small group between friends. You can email me if you like. I'm derekmaul@gmail.com, and I'd love to have that conversation with you. As always, God bless you, peace be with you, and let's continue our conversation in the future. I'm Derek Maul.